Welcome, mental health warriors. You are listening to Crafting Mental Health. Hey there, mental health warriors, family, friends, anybody who's new to this podcast. Welcome to this week's episode. And I'm glad you guys have tuned in again to hear what we're talking about today. So, as you've probably seen in the episode name, today's topic is borderline personality disorder, or BPD. Yes, borderline personality disorder. But first things first, if you guys would like to go ahead and just hit the follow button or the like or subscribe button so that whenever there's a new episode, you guys will be notified of the new episode that's out. And if you want to would like to leave me a review, that would be great too. Just so I can get the podcast out to more people and hopefully help more people understand the different mental health disorders and different ways to treat them, and just all that kinds of stuff, like all the stuff that we've been talking about on this podcast. So if you guys would like to go ahead and hit that button and share this with your friends, you can also join me on my Facebook group, which is Crafting Mental Health Podcast, and it's an open group, so anybody is welcome to come and join that group and come and share your experience, your stories, and even share tips and tricks that you've learned over the years to deal with your individual mental health situation. Alrighty, and with that being said, let's jump into this week's episode, which is borderline personality disorder. So first off, something that I've learned with my own diagnosis of bipolar is that, just like a couple weeks ago, I said that bipolar and ADHD has similar symptoms. The same with bipolar and borderline personality disorder. They have overlapping symptoms. So just because you have several of these symptoms doesn't mean that you necessarily have borderline personality disorder. Sometimes you can have something else going on. And something that I read is that people with bipolar disorder typically gets misdiagnosed with borderline personality disorder because the two are so similar. Well, not similar, but have a lot of overlapping symptoms. But, so with borderline personality disorder, you kind of feel like you're on a roller coaster. With a lot of these mental disorders, you typically feel like you're on some kind of roller coaster. Things are not right. And, if you feel like you have some of these symptoms or you have some of these signs and you're thinking like, okay, maybe I'm struggling or I'm suffering from borderline personality disorder, then, go and see your doctor. Go and see a therapist or a psychiatrist. And, those are the people that are trained to diagnose these things. And if you're convinced that you have a specific disorder and, they are not diagnosing you, or they're diagnosing you with something other than what you're thinking that you have, there's no shame in going to get a second opinion. There's nothing wrong with that. I actually had to do that because I had a doctor who, she diagnosed me, or kind of sort of diagnosed me with one thing. And when I talked to my therapist about it, and I said, I don't feel like this is accurate, we talked it through, and she also said that that's not accurate. And I went and I got a second opinion. So the third doctor that I was at also said I had bipolar. So, after the third one, I was like, okay, I think this is where we're at. But anyway, back to borderline personality disorder. But first, just want to put a side note, guys, I'm not a health professional. I am not a doctor. I'm not a therapist. I am just a normal person like you guys. And I'm just, like doing research on these different topics. And I like telling you guys about what I have found. And because I've learned that sometimes the movies and the TV shows, portray certain mental health disorders in a certain way, and it's not always, very accurate, or they will show the most extreme cases. And, the average person who's struggling with that mental health disorder, it doesn't necessarily have those extreme symptoms. And then I think a lot of times people are being told that, there's nothing wrong with them because their symptoms are not that extreme, but yet they still have this mental disorder. They still need help. And, just because they're not acting crazy or acting severely unstable doesn't mean that they're not struggling with something themselves. Okay. But that's why I said I like doing research and finding out more about it. And then I like coming on here and telling you guys about it and explaining what the different disorders are and treatment plans and all of those things. So just again, I am not a medical profession by any means. I can't give anybody a diagnosis. I'm just doing my own research and sharing that with you guys. So back to, signs and symptoms of borderline personality disorder. It is, borderline personality disorder kind of sort of also falls in the mood disorders. And, just like I've talked before about the handbook that the psychologist or psychiatrist use to diagnose people with borderline personality disorder, it's the same thing. There are several different symptoms or signs that you need to have, and in this case, for borderline personality disorder, you have to show at least 5 of these signs or 5 of these symptoms. And, it cannot be just for a short while. It needs to be long-standing. You need to have had these symptoms for quite a while. And a lot of times these symptoms starts when you're, an adolescent, like in your teens. And also most people who get diagnosed with borderline personality disorder will be over the age of 18 because of, how long you've need to had these symptoms in order to be diagnosed with this. So the 9 major categories or symptoms that you have when you have borderline personality disorder. Now, like I said, you need to have at least 5 of these over a long period of time in order to be diagnosed with this. And, because a lot of times some of the symptoms, it's normal to have those symptoms during a period of time in your life, like during, when you will feel depressed when somebody died, or when you lost your job, or you broke up with your boyfriend, your girlfriend. It's normal to feel depressed. It's normal to feel sad. But in order to be diagnosed with depression, you need to have all these symptoms for a long period of time. Like those symptoms are not going away. The same with borderline personality disorder. So the first symptom that, in every website that I've been on, the very first symptom that all of them are talking about is the extreme fear of abandonment. And yes, everybody feels like they don't want their friends and family to abandon them and leave them alone. However, with somebody who has borderline personality disorder, they take that fear is way worse than the average person's fear. They would actually go as far as to do things to prevent that from happening. They would be like extremely clinging, like preventing someone from leaving the room, for instance, or they would be just doing things that's not normal in order to prevent being abandoned. So in doing all of these things to try and prevent people from abandoning you, you end up actually pushing people away. So you're just doing the opposite. So that's the first symptom, or the first sign. The second one is having unstable relationships. All your relationships, friends, family, romantic relationships, work relationships, they tend to be unstable. And also you have this feeling of one moment you think the relationship is absolutely perfect, but then with a flip of a switch, you feel like this relationship is doomed and it's the worst thing ever, and you're flipping back and forth like that. So, people with borderline personality disorders, their relationships tend to also be very intense, but short-lived, because you can't have these intense relationships all the time. Then the third symptom is having an unclear or shifting self-image. Now, what that means is, one moment you feel extremely good about yourself, and then the next moment you hate yourself, or you even think you're an evil person. So you're going from one extreme to the next about how you feel about yourself. And a lot of times you probably don't really have a good idea of who you are or what you want in your life. So therefore you end up changing your job frequently, you changing friends all the time, you changing relationships or romantic partners. You can even change your religion all the time, values, your goals, and in some cases even your sexual identity. You tend to change up, just because you're trying to figure out who you are. And, and because you constantly, then you feel good about yourself and then you don't. So you have an unclear or shifting self-image. All right. The next symptom is number 4. It's impulsive or self-destructive behavior. So if you have borderline personality disorder, you may engage in, what's seen as harmful or sensational seeking behaviors, especially when you're upset or you're upset about something, like somebody hurt your feelings, or you're mad at someone. Then you tend to, I almost want to say, lash out by doing, destructive behaviors, things like you might spend money that you can't afford, or you binge eat, you drive recklessly, you shoplift, just get that thrill. You can engage in risky sex life, or you can overdo it with drugs and alcohol. And all of these behaviors, these risky behaviors, will make you feel better in that moment, but in the long run, they will hurt you. Over the time, they will hurt you. So, and I want to call this out because this is one of the symptoms that bipolar has as well. However, when bipolar people have this symptom, it's part of their mania or hypermanic swings or episodes, or whereas a person with bipolar disorder, they have this behavior because they are upset. It's emotionally driven, where bipolar, it is an imbalance in the chemicals in your brains, and that causes this type of behavior. However, with borderline personality disorder, it is based on an emotion. You're upset about something, and that triggers this behavior. I just wanted to call out the difference there, because I actually had to go read up what the difference was, and especially when I read this one, I was like, well, that sounds a little bit like me. But in my case, my hypermanic situations or my risky behaviors was not emotionally driven. All right. Back on topic. Number 5, it is self-harm, or, you have suicidal behaviors, or you will be cutting yourself, or doing things to hurt yourself physically. So that's obviously not a good one to have. And again, that doing these acts of self-harm, in the moment, it takes away from the emotional pain that you're feeling, because it ends up becoming a physical pain. So therefore, again, it's back on the behavior is based off of emotions. Okay, next one is number 6, extreme emotional swings. So what this is, like, it's your emotional swing. So one moment you may feel happy and the next you're extremely disappointed. Something that most people will just brush off as like an irritation can send you into an emotional tailspin if you have borderline personality disorder. Now, again, this sounds like almost like what bipolar sounds like, because you have these, extreme, going from one extreme to the next. However, with borderline personality disorder, the mood swings are intense, but they tend to come and go very quickly. So you'll have the mood swings and then they're done. However, with bipolar disorder or depression, these mood swings tend to stay longer. With bipolar disorder, the mood swings last, several days to can even be weeks or months. But with by borderline personality disorder, these mood swings will only last a few minutes or a couple of hours. So I hope that makes sense. So borderline personality disorder has mood swings from one extreme to the next, but it only lasts a few minutes to a few hours, where bipolar, the mood swings last days, weeks, months. So you'll be in one episode from weeks and, as I've mentioned before. All right, back on track. Number 7 is the chronic feelings of emptiness. So what this symptom or sign is just you have this extreme feeling of nothing, or that you're nobody. And typically this feeling, or this feeling of having this void or this hole inside of you, will be so uncomfortable that you're trying to fill that void with things like drugs or food or sex or alcohol. But at the end of the day, nothing truly satisfies, or make that feeling go away. Now, the next sign or symptom is number 8, and it is explosive anger. If you have borderline personality disorder, you will struggle with intense anger or have an extremely short temper. So you may have a hard time controlling your anger or controlling your temper. So therefore, you end up yelling a lot or throwing things, and you can be completely consumed by your rage. So and it's also sometimes, you might not show this extreme anger outward to other people, but you might be feeling all of this anger toward yourself. So it's, again, it's explosive anger. So an intense feeling of anger and just being extremely upset. And then the last sign or symptom is number 9, is the feeling of suspicions or out of touch with reality. So people with borderline personality disorder struggles with paranoia, or being suspicious of other people's motives. And this can, in extreme cases, the stress of that can cause you to lose touch with reality. Or you experience a dissociation. You can feel foggy or spaced out, or have a, almost like an out of body experience. So, this is also, it's a big sign with borderline personality disorders, having this fear of, or not a fear, but have this feeling of paranoia, thinking that everybody is out to get you, kind of thing. So, these are the 9, the main symptoms or signs that somebody that has borderline personality disorder will have. And like I've mentioned before, in order to be diagnosed with that, you have to have these symptoms or signs, at least 5 of them, for a significant period of time, in order to have the diagnosis of borderline personality disorder. Now, the treatments for borderline personality disorder is typically talk therapy, or psychotherapy. Talk therapy is like you go to a therapist and you talk through what you're experiencing, and learning mindfulness, being mindful in the moment. Like you can also be learning things like grounding exercises. So when you become extremely angry, or when you become paranoid, or any of those signs, do a grounding exercise in order to to bring you back to quote unquote reality, if you will. So that is, talk therapy is one of the big ones, or the big treatments for borderline personality disorder. In some cases, doctors can prescribe medication that could also work, but for the most part, talk therapy is probably the most common therapy for borderline personality disorders. Now, typically, someone with borderline personality disorder is rarely that they only have borderline personality disorder. They typically have, different disorders going on, some simultaneously with their borderline. So other things that they could have is depression, anxiety, eating disorders, substance abuse. So, like I said, typically someone with borderline personality disorder will be diagnosed with other disorders too. Or in most cases, they'll probably have the other disorders diagnosed first, and eventually the borderline personality disorder will be diagnosed. Okay, so with borderline personality disorder, or any personality disorders, there's a stigma about it. That, when psychologists talk about personality, what they're referring to is the pattern of thinking or feeling, and the behaving in a certain way that's unique from other people. Nobody acts in exactly the same way all the time, but typically we tend to act or engage in, a consistent way. Like that's why you would be described as a shy person, or that's why you would be described as an outgoing person, or a fun-loving person, or an introvert or extrovert. So the ways that you typically react to situations or act in situations will describe your personality. But because when we talk about, having a personality disorder, you almost feel like you're being judged, that there's something wrong with your character. And that is the stigma, is that people think that, if you have a personality disorder, that there's something wrong with you, that you are, that there's something wrong with the character, like you're being judged. But in clinical terms, personality disorder just means that it's the pattern that you're relating to the world that's different from the norm. In other words, you don't act like people would think or would expect you to act, or you don't act in a way that most people act. And in this instance, that is where it can cause problems with, relationships, or with your job, or in, and feelings, how you feel about yourself, or, about others, because, in most cases, like normal people, I don't want to say normal people, but most people act in a certain way in certain situations. And people with borderline personality disorders act differently. They react differently to certain situations. And it's something that, quite honestly, they can't help. However, it is important to know that if you have borderline personality disorder, you can change the way you react in certain situations. Okay, so these patterns can be changed. So it's not like you're broken and you can't be fixed. It is fixable. But it takes work. It takes a lot of work. And the same with any of the mental health things. It takes work. You got to put work in it to fix it or better it, at least. Just like if you want to, do better physically with your physical health. You want to go to the gym. When the first time you go to the gym and you get on that treadmill, after 10 minutes, you're going to feel like you want to die because you're not used to it. But give it 3 months, 6 months, a year. If you do the same exercise and just increase it a little bit every week, within a year, you're going to be able to run an hour and probably still be able to go. Where day one, you can barely do 10 minutes. It's the same with mental health. Day one is going to be hard. Oh, it's going to be hard even day 100. But every day that you work towards bettering your own mental health and taking charge and being in control of your mental health, it's a day closer to it being a little bit easier. And yes, day one is hard. I know, but you can do it. So when you go and you talk to your therapist and they tell you like, okay, next time you're going to do this, or this, then do it. If they say, hey, get out a journal and start journaling every day so you can start seeing patterns when you start, so that you can figure out when you're reacting in certain ways, get yourself a journal and start writing. I know it's hard. Change is hard, but it's possible to do. You just have to put your mind to it and just, one step at a time, one moment at a time. But again, with any mental health disorder or, issue or whatever, there is help. Yes, it's hard. In some cases, it takes a lot more to get over it or past it or deal with it. And I understand that there's a lot of, cases where medication is not working for somebody or talk therapy is not working for somebody. But you cannot just, throw your hands up and say, oh, well, I'm a lost cause. I can't do this no more. You got to keep trying. You got to keep fighting. And that is why I call you guys mental health warriors, because you get up every single day and you fight the fight to become a better mental health person, to have to improve your own mental health. And I am so proud of each and every one of you that gets up every day and fight your mental health and fight to have better mental health and fight to show the world that it is okay to have mental health things, that it is okay to take prescription medication when your doctor prescribed them for you. It is okay to take medication for depression or anxiety. You don't have to shy away from that, but it's also okay to try alternative medicines. Anything that works for you, that makes you better, that makes it better for you to be in society with everybody else. That's all you can do, is do one thing at a time to make life easier for yourself and for people around you, so that we can all, take hands and just become a better society, that we can love on each other and care for each other. And I think I went off on a tangent there, but, I just wanted you guys to know that there is help. And like I've said before, if you need someone to talk to, you can reach out to me. You can reach out to, a therapist. There are lots of people that you can talk to. If you feel like you're going to hurt yourself, there are numbers you can call. There are places that you can go. I know, with insurance, sometimes these things can be extremely hard to overcome. And I'm going to still do an episode on that too one day. And, but what I'm saying is, talk to someone, get a support system around you when you're struggling, have a plan in an action plan for when you get at your worst, so that your friends and family and your support system knows what they need to do to help you. Like a couple of weeks ago, I had an episode of what not to say. There's sometimes that what will trigger you and make you worse. And you know what people can say that will make you better. So let your family or your friends, your support system know what they can say in a certain situation to make you feel better. Like, I had to teach my husband this, that, when I'm like freaking out and I'm having a really bad day and he's basically sitting there like, I don't know what to do. I've told him before, all you got to do is just come up to me, hug me, tell me everything's going to be okay. No matter what I'm saying, I can be crying my eyes out. Just hug me and tell me that you're not alone and everything's going to be okay. Because, this too shall pass. This moment will pass. Good moments will pass, but bad moments will pass too. And it is just a moment and you will get through it. Okay? So if you need to talk to somebody, please, please, please reach out. You are not alone. I will not judge you. And nobody should judge you, but just know that you are not alone. And there is people out here that would love to help with you and connect with you and talk with you and sit with you if you need someone to sit with. You are not alone. And there is people out here that is here to help lift you up and hold your hand through a hard situation. All right, guys. So, as always, like I say, if you need someone to talk to, reach out, and please share this episode with anybody that you think might benefit from it. And I hope to talk with you guys soon. And I hope you guys have a fantastic, wonderful week. And for those of you in the U.S., enjoy the eclipse tomorrow. Yes, that will be April 8th, 2024. And I hope you guys have a wonderful week, and I will talk to you next week. Have a good one. I love you guys. Bye.